For as long as Rawz al Ghul's name has been spoken, there has been a debate on how it ought to be pronounced. Linguists say one thing, writers say another, and fans have been caught in the crossfire.
Raysh.
Raz al Ghul.
Raysh al Ghul.
Rawz al Ghul.
Raysh al Ghul.
Raz al Ghul.
Am I pronouncing this right? Mr. Raz al Ghul?
Raysh, not Raz. A common mistake.
So, which is it? Rawz materialized as a character at a time of transition in comics. Many writers and artists had then considered their work to be fairly disposable. His own co-creator, Dennis O'Neil, stated in a 2014 interview, "The conventional wisdom was that a comic book has a life of about 3 months. It was junk. It was birdcage lining. The readership was understood to become completely new every 3 years or so," which meant that he and his peers found themselves able to get away with recycling many of the same villains without much thought to any grand design. It wasn't until he and Rawz's co-creator, Neil Adams, witnessed the rising popularity of the Green Lantern Green Arrow series in the early 1970s that they decided it was time to invent a new Batman villain, to double down on the medium's potential and see where it takes them. Because we're either going to go to clowns again, or we need a new character. Obviously, with a role intended to be fairly substantial in the lore, he needed to have a substantial name. And for that, O'Neil and Adams took the suggestion of their trusted working partner and editor, Julius Schwartz, better known as Julie. According to an interview with O'Neil, Julie came up to him with a name meaning head of the demon in Arabic, which would also then become one of the titles of the character in the comics, the Demon's Head, Rawz al Ghul. Adams elaborates on this story in another interview, recounting a conversation with Julie. "You know how Sherlock Holmes has Professor Moriarty? We need a Professor Moriarty. We need a really good villain who is as smart as Batman and as capable as Batman." And so, Rawz al Ghul is born. An essentially immortal genius with immeasurable wealth, leader of the League of Assassins. He would become one of Batman's greatest and most respected adversaries. Good to go! Wrap him up with a bow. Dunzo. Simple. So why all the intensity around this character? Well, it turns out that we comic book fans can be a pretty opinionated bunch, and some early confusion over his name's pronunciation has divided the masses. Put simply, the contention around it is over whether or not a name ever gains its own autonomy, separate from external forces, like language. Because the words Rawz, al, and Ghul are actually part of the Arabic language, there's really only one correct way to pronounce them. Julie created the name by combining Rawz, meaning head, al, meaning the or of the, and Ghul, meaning ghoul or demon. And so this is where the Rawz pronunciation camp stands, because that is the one correct way to say these words in Arabic, and his name is originally meant to be Arabic. On top of that, it's also interesting to note that for many, many years, Rawz's name was written with a macron over the A and the U. This macron exists in the Arabic form of the word and instructs readers to stress the long vowel sound, and so Rawz al Ghul. It's quite telling then that these macrons were eventually removed from the publication. Maybe when they realized it didn't match their preferred pronunciation, they removed them. Like some sort of retcon? Who knows? Now, with all this in mind, one has to wonder, where did the idea that it was pronounced any other way come from? Well, it turns out there are a few places, but mainly the mind of O'Neil himself, and the word of some UCLA professors. When asked how he felt about all the hubbub over the name, he recounts a story of his daughter seeking the input of her university professors. It seems, according to them, that it ought to be pronounced Raysh. Now, knowing what we just learned about the Arabic inspiration, this story would seem a bit suspect until you consider the close similarity Rawz has to a Hebrew word, also meaning head, Rosh, and also how likely it is that the writers had a greater familiarity with the Hebrew language than they did Arabic. But how does Rosh get to Raysh? Well, the 20th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Raysh, is pronounced this way. It looks like this, and is a Hebrew cognate of the Arabic letter Ra. Raysh is connected to the word Rosh, not only because Rosh starts with a Raysh, but also the letter Raysh is meant to physically represent a bowed head. It seems then that the Arabic word Rawz was substituted for the more familiar and easier to pronounce Hebrew form, because the Arabic word reminded them of it. Finally, contributing even further to the confusion is the often varying pronunciation of the name in non-comic media. Historically, movies, TV shows, and video games have all been inconsistent from one to the other, or even in the same show, in the case of the CW's Arrow series. Christopher Nolan's film has it as Rawz, Batman the Animated Series and the Arkham games have it as Raysh. So, yeah. There really isn't a 100% correct answer. It's simply a matter of which set of reasoning each person chooses for themselves. Personally, I prefer Rawz, but What do you say? Rawz or Raysh? Do you see Rawz al Ghul as words in a language that lose their meaning when mispronounced? Or do you see it as a name that ought to be pronounced in whatever way the named prefers? Additionally, is there a specific game, show, or movie continuity that sways you one way or the other? I'm particularly interested in this last one. Let us know in the comments down below. P.S. I know, I'm not Scott. Guys, I've been doing this show for a year now. Come on! Anyway, I really like this episode, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. If you'd like to watch other episodes of this show, take a look at this playlist of all the alter egos we've made. Also, if you want to see some more of my stuff, click on this link here to check it out. It's super nerdy, I think you'll like it. And if this is your first time with us here at NerdSync, click on our logo to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the videos we have coming at you each and every week that explore the art, history, science, and names behind our favorite comics.